Hello, this is Tommy Franks. Welcome to the 4-Star Leadership Podcast, a product of the General Tommy Franks Leadership Institute and Museum. We're here to get a view into the lives of the legacy makers, the movers and the shakers of today, to offer insights from the full spectrum of the leadership community. We'll talk to former 4-star students and explore their leadership development path. We'll work to find out what they are about today and learn from the opportunities they've made for themselves in this world. It's my distinct pleasure to welcome you to this podcast. Remember, leaders are not born, they're developed.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Core Principles of Leadership with General Tommy Franks. I'm your host, Jay Zacharias, and it is a great day to listen to a podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about victory and high-risk opportunities with our guest, Major General Gary Harrell. We have a great episode for you, but before we get into that, we'll get a quick word from our main sponsor of the podcast, REI Oklahoma. REI Oklahoma is proud to be a part of the General Tommy Franks Leadership Institute and the production and distribution of these podcasts designed to inspire leaders and difference makers. At REI Oklahoma, we have been working with small business leaders, entrepreneurs, and people who are driven to succeed for years. Highly motivated people working to own their own businesses, live in their own homes, and make the world a better place. Since its beginning, REI Oklahoma has continued to identify hurdles and deliver holistic solutions to create job growth and help neighborhoods thrive in both rural and urban communities. REI Oklahoma looks forward to visiting with you about helping your business and community grow. Visit reiok.org or call 800-658-2823 to start the conversation. And now for our guest of the hour, retired Major General Gary Harrell. Gary Harrell is a retired United States Army general who worked side by side with General Tommy Franks during the War on Terror. We are happy to have him on. How are you, Gary?
Fine, Jace. How you doing this morning?
I'm blessed. I cannot complain. Today we're going to talk about victory and high-risk opportunities. And if anyone knows about victory and high-risk opportunities, I think you're our guy, Gary. So before we get into our main topic, why don't you give our listeners a little bit of insight on, your personal life, your upbringing, what makes Gary Harrell Gary Harrell?
Well, you have to understand I'm a redneck from East Tennessee.
There you go.
I grew up in the foothills of the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up on a small farm and learned a lot about life out walking in the fields with my grandfather and my father. My family, we always raised a huge garden, and that's what we ate on for most of the rest of the year. We milked 2 or 3 cows. It wasn't a dairy farm, but my grandmother's apple cobbler sure did taste good with some cream on top of it.
There you go.
My family we lived within about a mile of the church we attended,
Mm-hmm.
and when the church doors were open, we were there. And I remember I used to be bothered by it. My friends would come into school and they'd talk about watching Davy Crockett or some show like that.
Right.
And what'd you think of that? And I go, well, I wasn't there I didn't watch Disney on Sunday night.
Right.
I watched the Antioch Baptist Church.
There you go.
And I wanted to go to college. I went to a local high school, played football, enjoyed that very much. When we started, my dad called me in and he said, look, I'd like for you to go to college, but if you want to go, you're going to have to pay for it because I can't really afford it.
Right.
And I understood that. I didn't take that as a negative statement from him. So I started looking around, and the ROTC department I guess they sent me a communication, or I read about it in the paper. Can't remember which. Anyway, they offered a scholarship, which was a full ride scholarship to attend ETSU, which is a small college that still exists here and does a very good job, in my opinion. They have an excellent ROTC department. And I was fortunate enough to get the first full 4-year scholarship to go there. So when I went, that scholarship and the football, I walked onto the football team and got a partial scholarship.
There you go.
I wasn't one of the big important guys. I was just a lowly defensive tackle. But anyway, that helped me go to college that I probably wouldn't have been able to do without that.
Right.
And then I was fortunate enough to, I went sleigh riding one night in the winter, and I was standing around a fire, and this young, very beautiful girl, I heard her answer a question, and it was, "Where do you live?" And she said, "We live in a house that Harrell Brothers built for us." Mm-hmm. And so I took that opportunity to tell her I was one of the sons of one of the owners of Harrell Group.
Right. Yeah, there you go.
I didn't know that she'd been watching me help in the afternoons, help build some of the houses. I'd go to work for my dad after I got out of school. Mm-hmm. She was watching with one of her friends.
Right. And
so it was a little bit of a setup. We just both happened to be at the same group at the same time, but prepared for it.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so one thing led to another, and I was fortunate to marry the love of my life, we're still married. You know, in the special operations community, sometimes somebody say, "How long have you been married?" And I go, "Well, it's 40 some odd years now."
Man.
And they'll go, "To the same woman?" Yeah.
Right.
You get a good one, you should keep them.
Absolutely, man. And congratulations on that. That's a testament in itself.
Well, I have a saying that's very, very helpful, and it goes like this: "Honey, if you like it, I love it."
That's right. Absolutely. So that's kind of a little bit of your personal life and your upbringing. Now let's get into your professional career. Tell us a little bit about, your professional career and what led you to that.
I was very fortunate, very blessed. I went to the 82nd Airborne Division as an initial assignment. When I was in ROTC, you could also opt to go to the Army's Ranger School. Mm-hmm. You know what that is, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you could, instead of going to summer camp, you could go to Ranger School. Mm-hmm. And if you made it through the school, you were a certified Army Ranger.
Right.
So I did that and graduated from Ranger School, which was really good because when you first go in, there's some schools that everybody in the infantry, which is the branch I chose, wanted to be. And, Ranger School is very important. Jump School is very important. And so if you're not careful, you can wind up spending a year or so going to school, and then you kind of get your first initial assignment. So I was able to get Ranger School out of the way. And it's a very, very hard school.
Absolutely.
And most people think that it's a school that teaches you all this, I'll say it like this, kung fu, killer, all this stuff. It's not. It's a leadership school. And it teaches you about how to be a leader when it's your turn, because you rotate into leadership positions and you go from there. So if you go to Ranger School thinking this is going to make me a really bad ass,
right,
you're going to the wrong school.
Right.
It is a very good leadership school because when you've got you and the guys in your section are out there and you've been on one meal a day for a while and you're all hungry, you've been deprived of sleep, and that's done on purpose.
Right.
To get you into a situation where you're not in the best mood you could be in.
Right.
Then you get handed this assignment and you have to make that work. And so that's what Ranger School is really all about. It's a great school. I recommend it for anybody that wants to be a leader. And I think it's well recognized.
Absolutely.
So that was a very, very good school. Got that out of the way early, went to the 82nd Airborne Division, had great commanders, and the NCO Corps in the United States Army is one of the best in the world. And it is so good that most of our NCOs, if they could get out and go to another country, they make them an officer, because that's how good our NCO Corps is, Non-Commissioned Officer Corps.
Absolutely.
They're the best in the world. I was very, very fortunate to have great NCOs around me all the time. And I would like to think I was a little bit smarter than the average bear by listening to my NCOs, because some second lieutenants come in and they're thinking, hey, I'm the guy in charge, so you got to do what I tell you to do.
Right.
Well, talk to them and let them help you learn what's better to do. And I was very, very fortunate. I had great NCOs all the way from platoon sergeant, team leader to command sergeant majors.
Right.
Really good. Some of them I'm able to keep in touch with today. I can only think of one that was problematic, and I won't go into that. But that's a pretty good record, having that many bosses, if you will, and them being outstanding leaders who taught me good lessons going all along. I'll tell you one. I was working for Bill Garrison, who is an outstanding leader, and we were doing I think we called it a tweet, tactical exercise without troops. So I was on this position, and we were in the 82nd Airborne Division. And the question that was posed to me by one of the instructors was, do you want to have your helicopters? That's how you move around. You jump into the site, but you got to have some mobility. Right. So we have helicopters to move us. And he said, do you want to keep your helicopters close and on call, or do you want them loitering somewhere back over the next hilltop? Now, I was thinking, okay, if I don't have a helicopter where I can talk to the pilot, I don't have control of it. He'll revert back to his others. And so I answered that, and this guy tore me a new one. He goes, that's ridiculous. When the Russians are coming, they'll have all this artillery and rockets and blah, 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 blah. And so my battalion commander, Bill Garrison at the time, he kind of got in on this guy a little bit. And before he was finished with him, this other captain or major he was, Garrison just tore him a new one. It was hilarious. And so afterwards, I went to Garrison and I said, sir, I think I answered that question incorrectly. And I'm really sorry you had to jump in and kind of bail me out. And he said, let me tell you something. I might chew your ass, but I sure as hell ain't letting nobody else chew the ass of any of my people.
Right. Absolutely. And having leaders like that are going to stand up for you immediately gives you more respect for them in those situations.
Absolutely. I'm really hard pressed to think of anybody who did not display that kind of leadership. Right. And I know we're going to talk about leadership a little bit more here, but that's where that goes back to taking care of your people. If you don't take care of your people, nobody else will.
Right.
And if you take care of your people, they'll take care of you.
Absolutely. And that's probably the most surprising core principle that most people are thinking, okay, communication, that makes sense for 4-star general, common vision, that makes sense. Character, that makes sense. And caring throws the most people off because, so many people immediately just think, 4-star general and the military, boy, he is just about it, this, that, this. And that's probably the one that he holds closest and he cares the most about because, so many friends of the general and people that have served for the general always say he was a troops general. I mean, he put the troops first. And, the stories that I've heard over the time I've been here just amazes me that he had so much authority and power in those situations, yet he chose to be a leader for the people that served him so that he could serve them as well.
You don't have enough time for me to tell you all of the good stories I know about General Franks and how he took care of his people. And, General Garrison was the same way. General Boykin was the same way. I was and I'm probably leaving out some. I shouldn't name people because I'll forget somebody. And
Right.
But the leadership I saw demonstrated in the senior ranks of the United States Army was outstanding. And most of it was in special operations, special forces. But they were really, really good. And it started back in ROTC. We had NCOs and officers who didn't say, look, the correct answer to problem B is for you to move from point A to point C.
Mm-hmm.
They said, look, if you look at this terrain and you can't figure out the best way to go and move your platoon and get it into this overwatch position, you probably won't come home.
Right.
They had all been in the Vietnam War. When I came in, the Vietnam War was over, just had ended.
Mm-hmm.
So that gets your attention when somebody goes, you don't do this. They're probably going to.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, I guarantee you it grabbed my attention. And so, knowing all that, the last thing I want to talk about before we kind of get into your stories about how you embraced victory and high risk opportunities, tell me about the first time you got connected with General Franks and what your first impression was and kind of how you guys first connected.
I was in the process of giving up command of Delta Force, and I was kind of looking around for what my next assignment would be. I heard about the Joint Security Directorate, which was the job that was responsible for all of the security in the Middle East. As you know, that's a big deal.
Right.
And so one thing led to another, and they said, go down and talk to General Franks. And so I did. And General Franks goes, well, what makes you think I want you? All the people that have had this job before you were military police.
Right.
Or that was their background. And I'm not knocking the MPs. However, he said, why should I hire you? I said, well, sir, I tell you what, you've had mostly military police officers in there, and that's all good. They've done a good job. But I said, I tell you what I'll do that's different. I'll look at these facilities that we're responsible to guard, and I'll figure out how I would attack them. And then I'll look for the different ways I can attack them. And then those are holes. And so I will plug up all the holes, and we'll be a lot better off. And then we'll go from there. He goes, damn, that's a good idea. You're hired.
Well, that's a pretty good introduction story to General Franks. I mean, and that just shows your innovativeness in that moment to give him a different perspective that he probably hadn't heard yet.
Probably not, but he was such a great guy to work. He is such a great guy to work for. Didn't mean to use past tense. When the USS Cole blew up, I was the guy responsible for security. I had people there. I had just landed in Riyadh. My guys came and told me about what had happened with the Cole. So I called General Franks. I said, hey, sir, I'm in Riyadh. What do you want me to do? He goes, get your ass to Aden in Yemen. And I said, and without thinking, I said, well, because I was new to the job.
Right.
I said, what do you want me to do when I get there? He said, damn, I don't know. That's what I pay you for. Get your butt on the airplane.
Man, I can hear it too. The one thing that I've noticed in working for General Franks, and I'm sure you can attest to this, is that, even though he's a 4-star general with so much knowledge and experience, he makes you feel comfortable at all times. You feel confident going to him with anything you might need to talk about. You know that he is going to back you 100%.
He does that for everybody that works for him. I could tell you stories about situations where he was sending me somewhere, and some of the people that were in charge there didn't want me to come. They were worried because when we went, my rule was we were armed. Don't care where it was, we were armed.
Right.
That's what soldiers do. One of the places where I was had been scheduled to go, the local ambassador didn't want me to be armed because that ambassador thought that that was problematic. So General Franks said, I really need you to go there. I said, okay, I'll go. And about that time, the locals there, Americans, not locals, said, okay, you can come and bring weapons. So I'm getting ready to go. I'm going the next morning, had to get up about, 2:00 in the morning, something like that. And my phone rings. and it's the DCINC, Rifle DeLong, who's no longer with us. He passed several years ago, but great guy. And he said, Gary, don't go. I said, well, wait a minute, sir. The boss wants me to go. What's up? He said, well, don't go. You're walking into an ambush. And when you get there, they're going to arrest you at the airport. I said, really? And he said, yeah. He said, the boss said, okay, back off. Don't go. Neither one of those. One of them was a 4-star and the other one's a 3-star. And I'm a lowly little 1-star. And neither one of those guys had to give up their time in the middle of the night. They're busy folks. They had big jobs.
Right.
And neither one of them had to bother to call me and say, hey, don't do that. Don't go. You'll get in trouble. And, it's not that they probably wouldn't have been able to get it out, but who wants to fool with that? You're there trying to help somebody, and they're trying to put you in jail. So that's the kind of leader that Tommy Franks is. And that's what leadership's about. If you don't take care of your people, they might not be as inclined to take care of you.
Absolutely.
That's really bad. And when you talk about victory in a situation where the odds are against you, you need everybody on the same sheet of music, or you run the risk of failure.
Right.
And if your modus operandi has been that you're open to hearing their input back to you, then that's good. Now, that does not mean that you go by vote. No. It's not that. It's a give and take. You have to explain it to them. And I always tried to, and I didn't do it every time, but my goal was to be able to, when we had extra time and it wasn't an emergency, to try to explain to guys if they had questions and say, well, we're doing this because of A, B, and C. Because it's okay when you got time. When you're in an emergency or you're in a really bad situation and you go, hey, move out on the right flank, there is no time for discussion.
Right.
I'm not telling it in that vein. But if they have learned to trust you, your subordinates, people who work for you, people who work with you, if they've learned to trust you, they go, okay, there's a reason he's telling us to do that. Normally, it makes sense to us. I'm certainly not trying to turn this into a testimony of my professionalism. I don't mean it that way. If they've learned to trust you and there's this give and take going back and forth, they go, well, you know what? Man, he hadn't steered us wrong yet. When he had time, he explained it. We don't have time to explain anything right now, so we're going to go do what he says. Now, that doesn't mean to imply that this is some kind of a vote or anything like that.
Right.
I'm not talking about that. You're still the commander, and they have to do what you tell them to do. But it's a lot better if they understand it when you have time. And when you don't have time, then they're like, oh, okay, last time was okay, let's go. It's much easier for things to operate that way. And some people will probably get their feathers up and go, oh, he's talking about doing this by committee. No. But it's always better to have, and it takes some understanding. You have to understand them. They have to understand you. If you work and you try to tell folks, look, if we got time, you can come in and see me one-on-one, and you can ask me about this stuff. Don't do it in front of a formation. That will not go well.
Right.
But if you got time, okay. And again, that falls under that, okay, sometimes we've got time to lay everything out for everybody, and sometimes it's just get on the horse and ride up the hill and lead the charge.
That's right.
So I think that's very important in leadership. And if anybody thinks that's a sign of weakness, well, tough cookie.
Tough cookie. That's right. All right, Gary. Well, we're going to take a quick sponsorship break and we'll be right back. Hello, this is Jay Zacharias with the General Tommy Franks Leadership Institute and Museum, and I would like to tell you about one of our partner sponsors. His name is Justin Krieger, and he has worked as an independent insurance agent at Krieger Insurance Agency in his hometown of Hobart, Oklahoma since 1999. Justin is honored to help with the annual Celebration of Freedom event and has been a board member for the General Tommy Franks Leadership Institute and Museum for many years. He is also a fifth-generation farmer and rancher in Kiowa County, where cattle, crops, and even insurance is sold with a handshake. Give him a call at 580-726-3076 or come by the office if you would like to speak with Justin Krieger or Kathy Lankford about insurance. We are thankful to our customers and friends who have supported us through the years. Again, Justin would like to say how honored he is to live in such a great country and how proud he is to help sponsor these podcasts. Please enjoy the rest of this podcast experience from your friends at Krieger Insurance Agency. And now, back to the episode. What I love about all these stories you're telling is that every core principle that General Franks teaches us in the Leadership Institute is just so evident of caring about those you are with, regardless if they are your superior or your subordinate. If you show that you care about them, they're immediately going to reciprocate that and work just as hard for you. Because like you said, everyone's had at least one, boss or superior that, was more of not as much of a leader as others. And the urge to work as hard for them as for a leader that truly shows their effort towards you is different. It creates a different result, and having that common vision. And I really like how you talked about being able to sit down at the appropriate time, especially kind of in the training and learning phases, and explaining this is why we are doing it because of ABC, because it gives those around you the understanding and the belief in what you are doing. Anyone can say, we're going that way. But if you can explain, this is why we're doing it, this is why you should believe in what we're doing because I believe in it, that creates so much more momentum than go that way. And being able to have that respect and trust in those situations, then, like you said, creates those situations where when you don't have time, but they've seen the caring attitude you've given them, the respect you've given them, the training and understanding you've given them prior, then when the crap hits the fan, you're able to say, hey, go that way. And they have every ounce of trust that you're putting them in the right direction.
And I learned that from good leaders like Tommy Franks, Bill Garrison, Jerry Boykin, others, and the list goes on. And there are a lot of NCOs in there too, because when you first get to a platoon or something like that, if you ignore the platoon sergeant, you are a blithering idiot. You want to see the best platoon sergeants come in, close the door, and they go, hey, sir, you can do that, but you're not going to like what's going to happen.
Right.
And they tell you a better way to do it. It's not a challenge to your authority or anything like that, but it's this guy coming in and giving you a 5-minute block of instruction on leadership.
Right.
Should have known, but maybe you didn't. I don't know.
Right. Absolutely.
But, I learned early on that we have a great professional NCO Corps, like I spoke about earlier. And if you ignore that professionalism and the ability to tap into their experience when you have it, then you're an idiot.
Right. And, being able to understand those situations and have that common sense and awareness in the correct times, that's a huge part of leadership as well.
I'm getting worried that we are losing all of our common sense in the United States of America. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. What?
Right.
Where did that come from?
Right. And I think that just makes it that much more important to have role models as yourself create these leadership podcasts and give that insight and that experience so that, our young youth and alumni can listen to things like this and understand they've been there, they've done that. This structure of leadership and these so simple. I loved what you said on the phone the other day. It is so simple to be a leader, but people stumble over the simplicity of it in regards of if you are caring, you share a common vision, you have true character that serves others, and you communicate well, anyone can be a leader. And General Franks always says that leaders are not born, they're developed. And your stories are a testament to that as well.
Yeah, General Franks was a good teacher as well. I used to get tickled watching him on, we talked with VTCs like you and I are doing. And I remember seeing him. He was a master of the art of ass chewing. You know, he could just let you have it, but you didn't feel so bad about it because he could do it in a way that wasn't fun, but he did it with a little bit of humor. That seems to be the magic sauce.
Right.
And it's not always possible either. Sometimes you have to put your foot down and go, okay, that's it. You're done. You have to know when to do that too. But
absolutely.
You don't have to trot around throwing your weight around and going, oh, I'm the boss here, so you all got to take your break now and get out of here. And
having humility, I think that is one thing that a lot of people mistake for leadership is I'm the boss, so that means I'm a leader. Whereas leaders hold humility in all circumstances. And like you said, there are situations where you have got to put your foot down because of, certain actions or situations that you've got to make sure that doesn't happen again or actions aren't repeated.
And the best way to say it is take care of your people. They take care of you. It's
absolutely.
Not a bargain trade or anything like that. It's just the best way to get things done.
Yep.
Now, again, there's times to put your foot down and come down hard, but most of the time it only takes, it's easier to get it with a little bit of humor. And
absolutely.
Master at that.
I believe it. I believe it. One of the questions that our alumni had for you, knowing that you were in high risk situations a lot in your career, how do you, in those situations, how do you personally remain calm in knowing this is really serious? This is high level, sometimes life and death situations. How do you maintain composure within those high risk situations?
You have to make up your mind before you go that you're going to keep everything on an even keel. And what I mean by that is if you go into a situation and I'm asking you to follow me into a burning building and right. I'm running around in circles going, oh, this is going to be really bad. We're going to hurt. And, we might get killed, blah, 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 blah. Just go on like that. Who's going to follow you?
Right.
Nobody.
Right. Right.
So you have to, and I tell you how that was first brought home to me. We were on an exercise, forget where it was, and I was talking on the radio. So as we were doing the after action review, I made a comment about talking to a certain person. And he goes, well, really, sir, I don't know what you said because you were so excited and you had the microphone so close to your face when you were trying to talk. I couldn't understand you.
Right.
And that really got my attention. I thought, you big dummy. So what you have to do when you feel that coming on, you have to slow down and just start talking like this. And if you normally talk like this on the radio, it's understandable. Mm-hmm. If you're going, oh gosh, I don't know what's going to happen, and there's an airplane coming over, it's going to bomb you, you better get your ass out of the way. People don't understand you. And they dang sure don't want to do what you're trying to tell them to do if they could understand you.
Right.
So one of the most important things about being a leader is you've got to keep your composure. Now, does that mean you can't joke around and do things like that? You can. But if you're so scared, excited, you name it, that your subordinates can't understand you,
right?
Your troops can't understand you, I'd rather say it that way, then you're useless. And it took me a while to try to work through that and make sure that instead of running around like a chicken with its head cut off, I was talking to people and explaining what needed to be done.
Right.
I think that's very, very important. And I have heard a lot of people on the radio that never learned that lesson.
Right. Another question our alumni had for you was, of course, you guys were used to victory a lot of the time. That's what makes the United States military the United States military is, victory is pretty common. But in those situations where you do face failure, how do you take the failures and turn those into victories?
It's a hard one to explain.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, because you're embarrassed. You feel like you've let everybody down, and it's kind of like not getting too excited about talking over the radio. You got to just calm down and figure out, okay, we're in this. Best way to go is off to the right. Let's go. And this is how we're going to make it work. D-Day is a great example of that.
Right.
They didn't have the same advantage of weather forecasting that we have now.
Mm-hmm.
And to say that the invasion was important is a vast understatement.
Right.
So you have to have calm leadership that leads to that. And you have to also get as much, what would you call it? You have to incorporate your people into the planning process.
Absolutely.
Listen to them. And, sometimes they've got good ideas that you may not have thought of. And when you got time, you have to listen to that. And I think that Eisenhower did just a superb job because they think, okay, we got to go down. Well, it's not just stepping off of a ship to do that. You got a backwards planning and looking at when do the airplanes have to take off in England to get the paratroopers there. And all of that comes with that is very, very hard. So what you try to do is to make sure that your planners are well-informed, well-trained, and they are putting together the best plan you can possibly make. And you also have to remember that the best plan in the world goes to hell in a handbasket when that first round cracks over your head.
That's right.
And you have to be prepared for that. It happened through the Revolutionary War. It happened through World War I, World War II. We could sit and talk about it for hours.
Right.
And I look at some of our ancestors who, they were backwoodsmen, and they had a single shot rifle maybe and a pistol and maybe a tomahawk and a Bowie knife. That's about it. So if they're taking on British regulars, and, the difference was the British regulars had a butcher knife on the end of their rifle. Mm-hmm. Most of the frontiersmen in America did not. And there's stories of the Americans, the militia at Kings Mountain. They took 4 bayonet charges from the Brits and stood up to them and then went up and cleaned out the mountaintop. And you think about that. These guys are coming downhill, so they got a lot of momentum. Bayonet charges are awesome engines of destruction.
Right.
But and you think about our ancestors, you go, wow, how in the world did they do that?
Right.
Well, they believed in what they were doing. They had a good plan. And they were also pissed off the British general had been treating them like not very well.
Right. Well, Gary, it has been an absolute pleasure, and I appreciate you kind of going over how important it is to care about those around you and support the people around you in all high-risk opportunities, and to have calm within the storm and to be sure and have your focus and plan accordingly. And no matter how chaotic of a situation you might run into in any way, shape, or form, of course, you were in the United States military. Yours were a lot more dire situations of life and death. But, for every leader in every business situation, no matter where they might be, as long as they keep a cool head, trust in those around them, care about those around them, and maintain the character that all leaders do, success is soon to follow. And, I really appreciate your time and your stories and, everything you've given us today.
I appreciate this opportunity, and I just want to remind everybody of what I said earlier about having the pleasure of learning from a group of very well-trained expert leaders that took the time to bring me up. Like I said, I'm this country redneck from East Tennessee. And so these guys, these accomplished leaders, took time to train me the right way. And some of them were officers and some of them were NCOs. And that is what enabled me to be able to get into one of these positions and be successful.
Absolutely.
And I think it's very important to the future of our country. I think without getting into politics, I'm worried about where we're headed right now. Mm-hmm. And we certainly need some very, very good leadership.
Absolutely. And, that's a good call to action to a lot of our alumni. I challenge everybody to look at the people you surround yourself with, kind of like Gary talks about. I've heard the statement that you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. And, kind of analyze that, see who you surround yourself with. Are you happy with being the average of those people? Are there some more, experienced or more noble leaders you might want to surround yourself with, because you become like those you surround yourself with. So being able to have those leaders that build you up, and then you in turn can build the next group of leaders up behind them, is a very prestigious honor and something that is very humbling. And I really appreciate Gary for kind of touching on that as well.
You have to kind of listen to what we've said, because we went through a lot of different items.
Right.
But I would like to thank the people that I've worked for and with for their excellent leadership and counseling and head knocking and butt kicking and all that good stuff that they put me through, because both at the officer and NCO level, I was very blessed to be working with some of the best people in the military in the world.
A man of character, 100%. Very proud to call him a friend of the generals, a friend of the museum, and a friend of mine, Gary Harrell. We appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you next time, okay?
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you again to REI Oklahoma for making this podcast possible. For nearly 40 years, the board, staff, patrons, and supporters of the nonprofit economic development REI Oklahoma are committed to expanding Oklahoma's economic prosperity, earning the reputation of being one of the most comprehensive economic development organizations in the country. Business loans, training workshops, business consulting, and networking opportunities, as well as technical assistance and even commercial business space, are made available to Oklahoma entrepreneurs and small businesses. For low and moderate income individuals and families, down payment and or closing cost assistance is offered. Learn more at reiok.org. This has been the 4-Star Leadership Podcast. Now it's your turn, 4-Star listeners. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what you thought of this episode. Be sure to give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcast, and tune in next month for our next episode that airs every last Friday each month. Go be great.